4,000 years ago in Britain, our ancestors raised a magnificent and enigmatic temple, Stonehenge.
The Stone Age people who built Stonehenge achieved something profound and supreme. These are clever, sophisticated people.
Modern humans build lives unimaginable to our Stone Age ancestors. But we are still family. On an evolutionary timescale, we've hardly changed at all.
Whatever the people who built stone circles might have been thinking in their daily lives, deep down they're exactly the same as us. They're Homo sapiens, they're modern humans. Put them in a pinstripe suit, stick them in the centre of London, and you wouldn't know them from anybody else.
The builders of Stonehenge left no written record of their deeds or beliefs, no way to access their minds. To know our ancestors, we have to understand their achievement. And now, for the first time, a new partnership between science and archaeology is beginning to reveal the unimagined sophistication of the builders of Stonehenge. The first stones were raised 4,500 years ago. 79 Welsh bluestones, each weighing around 4 tons, erected inside a circular ditch. 200 or 300 years later, according to archaeologists, the bluestones were rearranged and joined by massive 25-ton limestone boulders known as sarsens, after the Saracen enemies of the medieval Crusaders. 33 of the smaller bluestones remain visible today. In geological terms, all but 3 are spotted dolerite, a volcanic rock found only in one small area of southwest Wales. A single source 150 miles distant across mountains, rivers and sea. So how did they get to Stonehenge? The Preseli Mountains, where the bluestones began their long journey. This source of the Welsh bluestones was decisively pinpointed by geologists in 1923. It's a single square mile of rock outcrop called Carnminy. Nowhere else in Britain does the volcanic dolerite show these distinctive white spots.
I think Carnminy is a special place. When the sun is shining on the bluestones, it's magical. Prehistoric people also found this place irresistible. The surrounding area is virtually littered with standing stones, stone circles, and even megalithic graves. And once you understand the association of Carnminy with Stonehenge, then it's no great leap of imagination to understand that this was also regarded as a special place.
There are 2 theories of how the bluestones were moved from Wales to Stonehenge. Were they carried by glacier, an ancient ice sheet which reached southern Britain 650,000 years ago? Or did our ancestors perform a superhuman task, transporting many 4-ton boulders to Stonehenge 5,000 years ago? Dick Parry and Cliff Ossington are civil engineers with a passion for solving riddles of archaeology. They both agree Stone Age humans had the sophistication to transport the stones, but they strongly disagree about how they might have moved them overland. Now, each will attempt to show that his theory is the right one. Cliff will build a sledge to carry his bluestone. Dick will transform his stone into a cylinder.
My approach is to lift the stone off the ground, build a very large sledge underneath it, lift the sledge and the stone, put rollers underneath it, and then we're going to pull it across the field.
My principle is that the stone should be rolled in some manner rather than dragged.
Both men will attempt to use authentic materials. Cliff Ossington is using a genuine piece of bluestone.
Chuck something heavy in, Steve.
First, he must manoeuvre it into position using simple tree trunks as levers.
That's all right.
Right, okay.
Take it that
Go
way.
steady.
More.
Right, get safe, Steve.
Yep.
Has it got any more?
Here we go.
Hold, hold.
Dick Parry has chosen a modern substitute. Instead of bluestone, his rock is made of concrete, about the same size and weight.
People on the when you're ready.
Archaeologist Phil Bennett has agreed to judge the results of both experiments.
We're a bit low here.
The big difference between this experiment and the other experiment is that this somehow does look false, doesn't it, compared to the other one, because you're using sawn timber, you've got a concrete block.
We didn't have a bluestone available in a shaped form, so we duplicated that using concrete.
I see no problem with that. We've got direct evidence from the Neolithic, from preserved timber, that they're quite capable of splitting wood into planks, and as long as the weight of the stone is right and the other materials are right, I don't see there's a problem.
It is slipping.
Yeah. It just can't get the lever against it. That's the... Okay, folks. Right, Emma, hold. Hold, Emma. This is a rough stone, rough wood, problems. This is Neolithic engineering. Now we start work.
Can one of you get a bit of timber, please?
About 4 inches.
70 stones, weighing 4 tons, transported long distances without the benefit of modern technology. It appears a task beyond the strength of Stone Age people.
Got another small one for the other side.
As engineers attempt to show how it could have been achieved, geologist David Bowen wants to explore the glacial theory, which goes back hundreds of thousands of years to an ancient ice age. Could the bluestones have been carried from Wales to Wiltshire by glacier? Professor Bowen is sceptical, but he believes he has a conclusive way to test the theory. American scientists have pioneered a new technique for dating rocks called chlorine-36. It can reveal when a rock surface was first exposed to the atmosphere, either by glacier or by people. David Bowen will use the technique on the bluestones.
These are the bluestones, and here are some chippings recovered from these stones found in an excavation in the 1950s. And these are the samples we are going to date to shed light on how and when they came here.
Professor Bowen's work means that Stonehenge will be one of the first archaeological sites in the world to be tested by chlorine-36 dating. Stonehenge was built in the Neolithic, or New Stone Age, which began around 6,000 years ago. Neolithic people were the first monumental engineers.
Myself, I was born on farms, so you learn all the techniques as a child. Right, okay. My little boy at 6 can lift transit vans. The sap's coming out this wood.
That's about it. Like bending in the middle.
Neolithic children would be following their fathers, so by the time a Neolithic child has reached 15, they would have 10 years' experience in heavy lift engineering. Come round the front, we come through the gap, forward, my end down first. That's it, good fit, we've got it. That's the sledge roughly assembled, and now we start to lift the sledge up with the rock on and start putting the lashings into place.
Lafayette, Indiana. Professor David Bowen has brought his bluestone samples 4,000 miles to Purdue University in America. Here he hopes to finally determine if an ice sheet could have carried the stones to Salisbury Plain.
In the physics department of the university here is one of the few labs in the world that can actually measure the amount of cosmogenic chlorine-36 that has accumulated in this sample over time. Once we find that out, we'll have an idea when that rock was first exposed to the atmosphere back in Preseli in Wales. In turn, that'll help us in our quest to decide whether glaciation took it to Stonehenge or whether prehistoric people took it there.
In the heart of the physics department, a $10 million accelerator mass spectrometer serves the Rare Isotope Measurement Laboratory. Professor Bowen's precious bluestone sample from Stonehenge must be pulverized and dissolved in acid before the chlorine-36 dating test can be run. It works like this. As soon as rocks are exposed to the atmosphere, they are bombarded by cosmic rays from outer space. The rays produce isotopes, new radioactive atoms in the rock. So the longer this bluestone has been exposed, the higher the level of the isotope chlorine-36 will be detected. Professor David Elmore runs the facility.
In order to measure these very small number of chlorine-36 atoms, we need to get rid of the interfering particles. It's kind of like finding a few needles in a haystack, and we need to get rid of all the hay.
The longer the bluestone sample has been exposed to the atmosphere, the more likely it is that a glacier was responsible hundreds of thousands of years ago. The giant machine gives a decisive answer.
The concentration of chlorine-36 in the sample tells us the rock had been exposed to the sky about 40,000 years.
It tells us that there is no way that rock could have been transported to Stonehenge by an ice sheet, because the last ice sheet that would have been capable of performing that occurred 650,000 years ago. The rocks were first exposed on Preseli between 30 and 40,000 years ago. And then, about 5,000 years ago, people picked them up and transported them to Stonehenge.
Many archaeologists believe the likely route that Stone Age people would have chosen was a grueling 240-mile journey, first over land and then by sea, using the sheltered bays of the Welsh coast and the Bristol Channel, to the River Avon and on to Stonehenge. But first, they had to get to the coast. So scientists confirm that human strength and skill did transport the stones. Now, engineers can show how it could have been achieved.
If we're talking about moving a stone of this sort of weight, 3 or 4 tons, from this site to the sea, you would probably have needed a labour force of about 100 people, something of that order. "8 degrees, it's about 1 in 7. That's a pretty steep hill. They get up there, they've done a great job.
Could you run the rope out now in 2 lines up the field, please? We actually snake it out slightly. It'll bite into the rope. It only takes 2 turns and the man can hold the ship back, literally.
Ready? On the count of 4.
I'll give the order to, just a minute, I'll give the order to go 1, 2, 3, and once you're going, keep going.
Keep going, all the way, 1, 2, 3.
But just keep up a good steady pace once you're moving. Right, on 3. 0, 1, 2, 3, pull.
Pull! 1, 2,
Sorry.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Right, hold the rope. Right, there's 2 instructions, take up and slack. If it jams, but we're pulling in steps. Okay, 1, 2. 1, 2. That's great, it's moving. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2,
4,000 years of human engineering.
What do you think, Dan? I reckon it's great.
Bit more, take up. Steady. Stop! Brilliant!
Using methods which could have been available in Neolithic times, both experiments have worked. Dick Parry and Cliff Ossington have shown that simple engineering techniques could have moved the bluestones.
I think we've shown today that it is possible to move heavy weights with what might be regarded as fairly primitive methods.
Both these experiments work, but there are more methods out there. And I think that our Neolithic stone transporters would have employed lots of different techniques in approaching and overcoming obstacles in the landscape.
I think when I first started this work many years ago, I honestly felt that Neolithic man would laugh at me, to be honest, because they were highly skilled people and I'm just touching the surface. And if I keep working at these experiments, I know to think like them is to be like them.
But 4,000 years ago, the real 240-mile journey of the bluestones was only just beginning. Ahead lay a treacherous sea voyage round the coast of Britain, with the threat of shipwreck and disaster. In the cold, quiet waters off the coast of Wales in the United Kingdom, a diver disturbs the resting place of a family of mysterious rocks. Did a prehistoric shipwreck halt an ambitious voyage? 4,000 years ago, were these stones bound for Stonehenge? Milford Haven. It was in these waters 25 years ago that a professional diver made an intriguing discovery.
Pino was a very experienced diver. He spent several years diving around the haven. And he knew his way about and he knew what the bed of the haven looked like. We had dived several times close to where they found the stones.
Pino Antoniazzi was working with explosives, deepening the shipping channel at Milford Haven to allow access for giant oil tankers. 30 feet down, he saw something strange. 3 great blocks of stone lay tumbled on the seabed. To him, they looked like a sunken cargo.
They were very large stones. And he became convinced that this is what they were. Stones on their way to Stonehenge, fallen off a raft.
Archaeologists in Holland have found evidence of simple dugout canoes dating back 8,000 years. But to date, nobody has ever found evidence of a Stone Age boat capable of carrying heavy loads at sea. Marine archaeologist Owen Roberts believes they did exist. We know Neolithic Britons imported cattle and seeds from Europe, and there is only one way those goods could have come to these island shores: by boat.
I believe that the Neolithic people did have a considerable seafaring tradition. From the evidence that we have of a little later period, I'm quite sure they would have been able to develop boats which could have carried these sort of weights. The one I like is the paired logboat or catamaran configuration. Stonehenge man could in fact have brought this stone down onto the beach. This vessel then could have floated in over the top of it and lowered itself over the stone. And then this stone could have been lashed, and when the tide came in, everything would float clear. It's a good solution. But this would not be the sort of day in which a Neolithic man would set out for Stonehenge or for the River Avon. He would be very wary of conditions like those out there at the moment, because he would know that his boats would only take so much height of wave, and that out there would sink him very quickly. There would be a great danger of at least a wave breaking against the side of the vessel and sweeping over him, and that would be the end of it. I would think from the depth of their experience, over hundreds of years before we think of Stonehenge, they would have sussed this out and be very cautious. It's part of the seaman-like tradition.
Beyond the jetty here, in the far distance, is Angle Bay, where, according to Pino's accounts, he located bluestones on the seabed on a shelf which defines the edge of the modern-day deep shipping channel. Potentially, one could have seen a vessel coming out of the bay into this open tidal estuary, an area of danger and perhaps fatal accident. And it's our idea to see whether indeed those bluestones are still there.
The modern harbour of Milford Haven occupies the deepest natural inlet in Britain. In Neolithic times, the tidal influence was greater than it is today. Stone Age mariners could have harnessed that power to propel their frail vessels. But inevitably, some would have met disaster. Bruce Jones will lead a team of divers to look for bluestones in Milford Haven. Local divers have been looking unsuccessfully for Pino stones for years. But now a major sonar scan of the seabed has located 21 potential targets.
Okay, Bruce, this is us travelling along across the area of interest, and here we've come to a target which is on the seabed.
That was the best of the main ones, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is probably one of the best ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we can zoom in on that one.
It looks a good one, doesn't it?
Yes, but this target is about 2.5 metres long. There's actually another target behind it here, and that's of similar sort of proportion. And there's a small target out to the side of it as well.
That could be interesting.
Yeah.
Bruce Jones and his diving team have two goals: to find the stones Pino saw and to identify them as bluestones.
This is where we are here at the moment on the jetty, and you see where the target points are. Two bits are highlighted there. The favourite ones seem to be that one, and that one there. And that one, I think, was the one that they said actually looked like three stones together, which is what Pino described when he saw them 25 years ago now.
Next day, the diving team is on the water. Their support vessel is equipped with the GPS, the Global Positioning System, which uses satellite information to pinpoint the sonar targets.
030. Okay, go in on that. Let go. That's it, right over the top. Excellent, spot on.
The divers are about to explore the most promising sonar target. Three large objects lying together on the seabed. The divers send up a marker buoy before surfacing to describe their discovery.
There are just some big sort of boulders. They look really sharp edges to them, but it looks like really hard rock.
So do you think it could be bluestone?
It's very difficult to tell, because the top of it's covered in growth, but the underneath of it is all like covered in mud, you know. I think we really need to get a piece up, but it's possibly, could it actually lift one lump?
Marine archaeologist Doug McIlvogue prepares to bring a sample to the surface. The stones have broken into many pieces, so Doug can lift a small fragment easily, using a buoyancy bag filled with oxygen. They can't be sure if they're the same stones Pino saw, but they hope this will prove to be the first glimpse for 4,000 years of a lost cargo of bluestones.
It doesn't really look like something you see at Stonehenge, but on the other hand, the stories about things being blown up for the, for clearing the shipping channel could fit in with that. And what was obvious down there was the sharp edges to it, as though maybe it has been blown up or something. And these sharp edges here, it's certainly different from the stones in the surrounding cliffs and things. So I think we need to actually have someone look at this and say what we've actually found.
In the Preseli Mountains, geologist David Bowen is anxious to identify the diver's stone, to compare it with the uniquely spotted dolerite used at Stonehenge.
Well, I think we can say that this is definitely not bluestone. This is bluestone. You can see the spots, the white spots, which is the spots on the dolerite, whereas there are no such spots on this rock. And my first feeling about this rock is that it consists of Carboniferous limestone, and that given where you found it in Angle Bay, it's quite likely that it was ship's ballast thrown overboard at some time in the past once they had no further need for it.
A disappointment, this time, for modern archaeology. But Neolithic seafarers did navigate 79 Welsh bluestones successfully to Salisbury Plain. What inspired this feat of heroism and endurance? Who were the Stonehenge people? For 50 generations, Stonehenge was central to the lives of the Neolithic people who built it. A great monument, remade, renewed, and revised to reflect their lives.
It's easy to think that 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, people who walked England then were like cavemen. Of course, this is not true. They are our ancestors. They're going to be just like us. They're going to be worried about what will be their equivalent of their job, their source of food, warmth, heat, friendship. They're going to be concerned about their children. They're going to be learning to cope with the process of growing up, aging, and ultimately and most dramatically dying.
It's likely they were a spiritual people, but their lives also embraced an economic revolution. This is an area of scientific controversy, but environmental archaeologist Mike Allen believes the Stone Age people were the first successful farmers in a rich and fertile plain.
Flying over Stonehenge and seeing this
from the air is actually, for me, really quite exciting and academically really quite wonderful. Right around Stonehenge we have some of the largest flint scatters and pottery scatters, which are telling us as archaeologists that people were living in this landscape. They were living not miles away, but actually right within the landscape, as close as Stonehenge as the car park is today. People in the fields immediately beneath us would be living there in houses, tending the land.
Neolithic man would have come to a very rich, fertile landscape. The soils were 3 foot thick, they were silty, lots of minerals in it. He could grow wonderful crops with it. One of the things about archaeology is we're moving on, we're moving into the age of science. Now, through the scientific ecological analysis, we can actually start to understand how they were farming and where they were farming. So we're using science to understand our landscape, and using that understanding of that landscape to understand Stonehenge itself.
The introduction of scientific techniques into archaeology is revolutionising old ideas about Neolithic people.
The Neolithic period has often been defined in terms of what people eat, in terms of the first farmers. This method I use, chemical analysis of bone, gives us a direct measure of what people ate.
Dr. Mike Richards of Oxford University has analysed bones from 100 Stone Age skeletons, looking for evidence of changes in the food our ancestors ate. He's using a technique called stable isotope analysis, and his results are extraordinary.
With this new line of evidence I have, this chemical analysis, this is new data that no one has ever been able to use before. Therefore, I'm sort of being able to see something that no one else would have been able to see.
He believes that within only 200 years, Neolithic people had given up wild food like fish and berries in favour of beef and cereal crops, a change from hunter-gathering to agriculture, which it used to be thought had taken millennia to achieve.
It's a very dramatic change. There's a whole so-called Neolithic package. All these things are found at the same time with the Neolithic: monument building, new foods, pottery, and it's a whole fundamental worldview change.
Firm evidence of that worldview is rare. But in Dorset, archaeologist Mike Allen has helped to excavate a Neolithic farmer's house with its own henge, or earthwork ditch, probably built for ritual purposes long before the stone circles.
This is a site we've been looking for as archaeologists for about 30 years. It's really absolutely stunning. We have henge monuments on their own, but very rarely do we actually have Neolithic houses.
The Neolithic settlement of Cranbourne Chase was built 200 years before the arrival of the stones at Stonehenge. It shows even their houses were circular.
I'm now walking in the steps of my prehistoric predecessors. I've walked into a Neolithic house, a house about 2,700 years before Christ. I'm now standing in the doorway. Inside the house, the roof structure was supported by 4 post holes. A large oak timber would have stood in this post where I am, perhaps 20 foot up, supporting a large roof structure. Just over here, there is a henge monument, a site of special importance, like the church of the community.
Stone Age people left their footprints all over the British Isles. But many of their most complex and ambitious monuments are found within 100 miles of Stonehenge. This must have been a region of powerful communities built on agricultural success. Stanton Drew in the rich farmland of Somerset. Hidden beneath the stone circle here, an extraordinary secret was uncovered by English heritage.
We're in the middle of the second largest stone circle in the British Isles. Around us, about 30 stones, most of them now flattened, just 3 still standing. And inside this huge stone circle, which is twice the size of Stonehenge, 9 concentric timber rings. Outside the stone circle, a massive ditch. By any standards, this is an extraordinary place.
The discovery in 1997 of the remains of a wooden temple at Stanton Drew was the most exciting find in recent British archaeology. And the payoff for a scientific technique, geophysical survey.
Geophysics is a gift for archaeology. You go out into a field, you have no excavation, you are equipped with bits of string, tapes and sophisticated electronic gadgets. And within a matter of days you can produce a huge amount of information that before geophysics was never attainable.
The geophysical surveyors did no actual digging. Instead, they used a highly sensitive cesium magnetometer capable of measuring tiny disturbances in the magnetic field, caused by hidden pits that once held timber posts.
When they came to Stanton Drew for the geophysics survey, they didn't really know what to expect. During the day, wandering over the field with the equipment, looking at the dials and the gadgets and the numbers, they couldn't really see much. They didn't feel that much was coming out of the ground.
OK, signal off.
They had no idea that beneath the grassy surface lay the invisible remains of a temple 5,000 years old, even older than Stonehenge.
In the evening, they downloaded the data onto their laptop computer, and in front of them, down the screen, slowly dropped this picture showing these concentric rings. For any archaeologist, this is the great moment that we all hope we're going to get in our careers. It's a eureka moment. You've discovered something incredible and you know it's there.
Around 500 huge wooden posts, an ancient circular temple 100 yards in diameter. A triumph for the team led by Dr. Andrew David of English Heritage.
The overall picture gave us the impression right away that here was a vast structure of timber posts. The feeling amongst the team was astonishment, perhaps. We couldn't quite believe that this really was a structure of this complexity and scale.
The discovery of Stanton Drew proves that Neolithic people were building huge, sophisticated structures well before the stone circles. There are lost timber monuments beneath Stonehenge too. The earliest was built 400 years before the great Sarsen trilithons were raised. But archaeologist Professor Richard Bradley believes the masons kept to the ancient woodworking tradition, choosing to copy it in stone.
Stonehenge as we see it is a very sophisticated stone structure. I think the main reason why it's such a sophisticated structure is that they have shaped stone as if it was timber. At Stonehenge they have been pounded into shape, they have been fitted together as if they were pieces of timber, so that you actually have sockets in the tops of the stones, you have what we call mortise and tenon joints, so the whole thing is fitted together like a piece of wood.
There are profound things in everybody's lives as human beings that have to have been important to the people who built these circles. Whatever happened in these circles, the events, the incidents, the rituals, the stories, the legends touched on those profound moments. Death, birth, loss, hopes and fears, expectations in your life.
Without written records, science has to find reliable ways of interpreting ancient experience through the modern imagination. 20 miles north of Stonehenge stands another stone circle, Britain's largest, Avebury. Here, new technology is helping a group of young archaeologists to recreate the past.
I think we need to capture that transition. That's really quite dramatic on this side. Yeah, so I mean we can get one in just here, and then we could get one in just here.
and that gives us that exact shape, so we get the triangles through.
What we're trying to produce is a series of virtual reality simulations of Avebury, which are geared specifically around very pressing archaeological questions.
1 triangle, 2 triangles, 3 triangles, 4. Yep. And then we've now got
Dr. Mark Gillings and his colleagues want to experience Avebury as our ancestors did, to repair the ruins and replace the missing stones through virtual reality.
Our virtual reality simulation of Avebury is based on carefully recording the archaeological remains which survive today. But we want to encourage archaeologists to actually work beyond that with the virtual reality model. We want to re-erect the missing stones. We want people to play with the types of stones they re-erect, explore textures, colours.
In creating a three-dimensional picture of the site, the university team from Southampton and Newcastle will offer researchers the ability to move through the circle, to walk in the footprints of the past.
One of the things we're looking at very closely within the Negotiating Avebury project is the avenue and the role of the avenue.
2 parallel rows of standing stones mark the mile-long avenue at Avebury. It was probably built to guide processions of people to ceremonies at the circle. But we don't know that for sure.
OK, Mark.
And many of the stones that could help interpretation are missing. So using an electronic theodolite, the team reconstructs the contours of the avenue. The questions are endless. For instance, why is the avenue curved?
We're looking at the role of the avenue, whether it was for procession, how the stones and the landform work together to create a very specific set of experiences. For example, subtle horizon effects can hide areas from view and it can encourage walkers to move towards them, to look for the areas of mystery and wonder that are hidden behind. But with the virtual reality simulation, we can explore the experience of moving along the avenue.
The stones at Avebury form an open, accessible circle. Perhaps the ceremonies that took place here were for a large and diverse community. But Stonehenge is very different. Its circle forms an enclosed and isolating space.
Stonehenge is a very dramatic, perhaps almost frightening place. It's a very enclosed space. It's very clearly demarcated by the stone circle. Stonehenge was a building which contained a secret, but that secret was only going to be revealed to a few people. It's therefore a building which closes down access. This is the outer circle of stones, and we can pass through those stones and approach the inner area, which is ringed by these massive trilithons, and between them we can see but cannot pass towards the centre of the monument itself. Those who come here, they're an exclusive group. They participate in rituals or performances. The secret of Stonehenge is revealed by inhabiting it and understanding the way in which this place operates in relation to the heavens and in relation to the wider landscape. It's a monument about revelation, and exactly what precisely is revealed, I think, will always be a mystery to us.
But it has led archaeologists to speculate that Stonehenge was an exclusive monument, whose rituals were experienced only by a few. And now, scientists are beginning to investigate what part sound might have played in this.
What we're actually trying to achieve here at Stonehenge has never been attempted before. What we're trying to consider is whether sound could have actually played a significant role in activities here in prehistory.
That one's a bit subtle. That one is right up at the high frequencies there, which we haven't got in any of the others.
Archaeologist Aaron Watson wants to hear Stonehenge as our ancestors did. His colleague, Dr. David Keating, is a specialist in acoustics. Their joint experiment is designed to reveal how sound behaved among the stones. No one can be sure what sacred ceremonies gave life to Stonehenge, what musical instruments accompanied the ritual. But now, science can begin to demonstrate how our ancestors may have experienced the stone circle they raised.
It must have been very strange, I think, for ancient man who's not used to large buildings, particularly stone buildings, to have experiences such as you get at Stonehenge.
The scientists set up an amplifier to generate a sound called pink noise. It combines all the possible frequencies people can create. The results are intriguing. Inside the stone circle, the sound behaves strangely.
6 meters.
Echoing around the huge sarsen stones, an intense, concentrated, mystical experience.
17 meters.
But those left outside the circle would have heard something more muffled and distorted.
18 meters.
A new experience for Neolithic people who were unused to the acoustics of large stone buildings.
High and mid frequencies are concentrated in the centre, and low frequencies pass through the structure, so that if you're in the centre, you get a completely different experience of sound from if you're outside.
The acoustic evidence suggests that Stonehenge was a place of ceremony and ritual for a spiritual elite.
It would have had a very profound effect on people that were actually there. It would seem possible that this may have somehow been allied to the spirit world, some unworldly experience.
Our ancestors left clues, but no firm answers. But science has already revealed that the Neolithic produced the first farmers, the first engineers, and the first Britons to express their spiritual yearning in stone. From simple earthwork beginnings 5,000 years ago, Stonehenge grew into a mighty temple, a monument to the devotion of our ancestors, to their lost beliefs and nameless gods.